All right. Thank you, Christy, once again. My name is Jason Belport, and it's really truly great to be here with everyone. I'd like to congratulate REEF on 30 years of making a difference for our oceans. Truly incredible work by amazing people. Also, thank you to John, Alex, and Martin for the awesome presentations yesterday. I truly enjoyed each presentation and came away from yesterday's talks in awe of the scope of Martin's management of the Coral Sea, a cheerleader for the path that Alex continues to blaze in all of his efforts, and trying to quantify how many Asian catfish I've actually eaten over the last 5 years, thanks to John. So thanks again, guys. Also, my wife said that I needed to open this with a joke, so here it goes. I'm not a joke guy, by the way, but so what did the fish say when it swam into the wall? Damn, there we go. There we go. We have one. Great. There we go. All right. So I'm by no means a marine biologist or scientist like many of you in this room, but my fascination and love for the oceans, along with a lot of hard work, has provided me with a career in the dive industry spanning 35 years. As a dive professional, things started for me in California and then really took off after I moved to the Cayman Islands in 1996 to pursue a career as an underwater photographer. They say that sometimes life takes you in a direction you never saw yourself going, but it turns out to be the best road that you've never taken. Starting out as a dive instructor in Cayman in 1996, I ultimately chose to pursue dive resort management, and I now serve as executive vice president and general manager of Clearly Cayman Dive Resorts. To this day, what inspires me is getting the opportunity to experience and photograph our oceans and spend time with like-minded folks who share the same passion, like you guys. So, get this thing going here. So, when I was 8 and trying to get my head around how cool Star Wars was in the late 70s, nothing was better for a kid in the Bronx than when summer arrived. Warm weather meant long days outside playing stickball, pretending we were the Yankee All-Stars, and water games in the community pool with friends. Everyone pretty much knows Marco Polo, but for those that aren't familiar, stickball was a popular pastime in the 1970s and 80s. Which traditionally involved a spray-painted strike zone on a park wall and played with a tape broom handle and a Spalding, a pink high-bouncing rubber ball. Although I really loved pretending I made the game-winning hit to win the World Series with every pitch at the park and really enjoy the endless games of Marco Polo with my friends, nothing was better than the pastime that I enjoyed the most, which was pretending that I was the man from Atlantis and doing my best dolphin kick in the pool. Yes, this was actually a TV show about a man, the one and only Mark Harris, the last survivor of Atlantis, who had webbed hand and feet and was deployed on life-saving missions by the organization that rescued him, the Foundation for Oceanic Research. I must admit that sometimes I did change it up and pretend to be 007, and that, I was thrown into a tank by Spectre, and somehow I needed to fight off endless frogmen or a tiger shark to make my escape. So with all of that, it was one summer day that kind of froze in time for me. It was the day Mitch, a marine biology student who lived next door and was home from college for the summer, came down to the pool with his scuba gear, set it up, and started to use it in the pool in front of all of us kids. After donning his kit, Mitch went underwater and stayed down there for what seemed like an eternity. None of us had actually ever seen real scuba gear before, only in TV and in movies. Obviously, after this incredible display at our pool, Mitch was now the coolest kid in the neighborhood, and we just, continued to dive down on him the rest of the afternoon as long as our breaths would let us. Although the other kids thought that the scuba thing was cool, I thought it was beyond cool. I couldn't get the idea that you could actually breathe underwater in real life out of my head. Mitch was nice enough to entertain me by answering annoying questions about his scuba gear and even share with me that he was raising seahorses next door. Sure enough, Mitch had a full seahorse farm going on in his room, and I stared into these tanks for hours upon hours, watching the seahorses do what seahorses do. From this point forward, I couldn't watch enough Jacques Cousteau. I couldn't watch enough Man from Atlantis. I couldn't watch enough 007 or visit the New York Aquarium. Mom helped quench the thirst for stuff about the oceans by ordering book series from Time Life Television's Wild, Wild World of Animals. The best days were when these prized books arrived in the mail, and nothing was better than when my favorites, Dangerous Sea Creatures and Whales and Sea Mammals, arrived. Those were the best ones. I do want to order a copy of the Dangerous Sea Creatures because as I was looking at this, I'm like, what did they have to say about sea monsters? Like, that's, you know, then again, we used to smoke in airplanes, so there you go. So it was official. I was inspired to chase ocean dreams and didn't even know it yet. So my third grade teacher at PS 24, that is public school 24 in the Bronx, right there in the heart of winter, assigned an autobiography project for our class in 1978. And here are a couple of excerpts from mine. So question 1, what do you want to be when you grow up? When I grow up, I want to be a skin diver and live with my 2 dogs in California. Question 2, if you had 3 wishes, what would they be? My first wish was that I would have 2 dolphins in a tank. My second wish, I'm sorry about the tank thing. My second wish was that I had enough food to feed them with. And my third wish was that all my friends could swim with them. Right? I mean, come on. So I'm going to fast forward 20 years after some formative diving years in the kelp forests of California, namely La Jolla and the Channel Islands. And to a day on the Captain Keith Tibbetts wreck in 1999 on the north coast of Cayman Brac, when a wish became reality. So this is a photograph of Spot the dolphin, who was an ambassador dolphin who visited the Cayman Islands in the 1999 through 2000 and stayed with us for about 1.5 years. And we had the most amazing dive adventures. And by the way, when I first swam up on this group of divers, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, because someone had written on their slate, dolphin, and said, and kind of pointed that way, and I started to swim that way. And I was looking around for mahi-mahi, right? But sure enough, here was this bottlenose dolphin on the bottom, allowing everyone to pet him. So pretty cool. And it really turned into a lot of fun over the course of the next 1.5 years. This is a photograph of Spot and I investigating a nurse shark on one of the nearby reefs called End of Island on the north side of Cayman Brac, actually at the west end. He was a lot of fun, and we had a great time together. He was friends to all the dive masters, and we had lots of guests that came and spent time with us that remember him to this day. Actually, this photograph was sent to me recently by a guest that I had just recently seen again. So, yeah, I had black hair back then. So, and every once in a while, we'd play a game of fetch and whatnot. So, really an amazing adventure and amazing experience. And who would have thought that in the 3rd grade, you know, doing an autobiography project at PS24 that I would have asked for this and ended up receiving such a magical experience. So really cool. Anyways, wanted to share that. So moving along to where I've spent the bulk of my diving career, that's the Cayman Islands. Been diving the waters there for about 27 years, 28 years now. And spent most of my time in Little Cayman and Cayman Brac, specifically. Seen a lot of great things over the years, met a lot of great people, seen amazing things, including the Grouper Moon project success, where after the big kill in the early 2000s, the numbers were in the low thousands, so just over 1,000 individual fish, and to this last year where I think the numbers were about 8,500. So really incredible success story, and I've had the privilege of being able to contribute some images. Generally, what I do is I shoot and I just give the hard drive over to Christy and Bryce and let them do what they do with it. But in the meantime, you know, I've been able to really enjoy the diving down there. So just to give you guys an idea of kind of where the Caymans are, there's a couple of slides in here for each location that talk about the locations of each of these places that I'll be talking about, but I wanted to give you guys some perspective geographically. So Cayman Islands are about a hour and a half flight down from Miami. The Cayman Islands is an island nation comprised of 3 islands: Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman. The islands are top of seamount pinnacles reaching up from the Cayman Trench, which is one of the deepest places on Earth. It's about 25,000 feet deep there. It's home to some of the healthiest coral reefs in the Caribbean, one of the top dive destinations in the region, and the surrounding depths, sparse rainfall, and island geology provides for very little runoff, leading to some of the best ocean visibility in the world. We consistently get visibility well over 120 feet, and sometimes it can get over 150 feet. Sometimes the vertical visibility could be upwards of 200-300 feet. The Cayman Islands government is a leader in marine conservation, which continuously promotes the preservation of the island's marine ecosystem and its species. So some of the initiatives that the Cayman Islands government and Department of Environment have been leaders on is the expansion of marine protections for over 30 years, installation and maintenance of public moorings, enforcement of marine conservation laws and regulations, turtle-friendly lighting initiatives. CIG and DOE partners with local operators to monitor and combat stony coral tissue loss disease. And they work with the private sector currently on sargassum management plans. Obviously, you guys have heard about the Grouper Moon project, and so certainly that's been a huge, huge successful project. So the challenges for the Cayman ecosystems, like many ecosystems in the Caribbean and around the world, in some cases, stony coral tissue loss disease, bleaching events and rising sea temperatures, localized coral reef competition between corals and algae, and sargassum, hurricanes, and lionfish. The lionfish, even though we need to stay at it, it's a little bit old hat now, so, but we still need to stay at it. And then, oddly enough, the Nassau groupers actually help us with that. They've been eating the lionfish in parts of Little Cayman for the last 10 years or so. So pretty cool. So just to give you a little bit more information in terms of how the islands lay out, the sister islands, Little Cayman and Cayman Brac, are 90 miles to the northeast of Grand Cayman. And then a little close-up here of Little Cayman and Cayman Brac. They're really close together, and we actually dive Little Cayman from Cayman Brac and Cayman Brac from Little Cayman. So you can do day trips between the islands. So as I've said, I've been a contributing photographer for the Grouper Moon project. I'd like to share a little bit of what it looks like down there when we're doing these dives, and the Grouper Moon team are gathering all their data. So it is an incredible thing to witness when you're in the water with 85 fish that are about 20 pounds each. Really amazing. This is actually all the grouper are at the edge of the drop-off on the west end of Little Cayman. And at this point, there's a couple of divers behind there. You can see them up in the upper right, but the whole group decided to just move back on the wall at one point. So this is just them coming at me and just peeling off as they make their way back towards the wall. But you can see here a lot of the different color phases. You've got the white, the brown, the bicolor, the traditional, brown with the white stripes. So everyone's got their own little mood going on in this photo, and you can see that throughout a lot of the different images here. But this was about 8,500 fish. So, and during the day, really cool to be in the water with them. They're just kind of lollygagging around, kind of waiting for the big moment, and they just kind of cruise back and forth on the edge of the wall here. And so a lot of times you're able to just, hang with them and kind of be one with the groupers. It's pretty cool. And as things kind of progress towards the Grouper Moon, towards the spawning night, what tends to happen is the movements start to get more pronounced. So the fish start to move in unison more. They start to move back and forth more. And you can see here, there's kind of the movement in this this image. It's got the groupers moving from left to right. Great display of all the different color phases in this one. But they're really starting to get agitated and get ready to do their thing, right? So, which looks a little bit like that. So essentially, when they're ready to do their thing and spawn, the female will go up in the water column, and then you'll end up with 20 to 30 males following the female up in the water column, which results in a large explosion of sperm and eggs, and then they all kind of head down to the bottom and do it all over again, over and over again. And during the event, it looks like fireworks at some point, because you've got multiple groups across the whole reef doing the same thing. So it's really, really amazing. This is a close-up of one of those moments there. The female is in the middle. You can see her right there. She's right there in the middle. And then these are all the males around her. So those are some of the images of the grouper moon. And like I said, I give all the images that I take to the guys at Grouper Moon and to the DOE in Cayman as well. So, so those are images of the Grouper Moon. And a couple of highlights in Cayman. This is the Captain Keith Tibbets. This is an image when it first went down in 1996. It's a 330-foot Russian missile frigate that was purchased from Cuba in 1996 and sunk as an artificial reef there. Jean-Michel Cousteau actually went down with the Captain Keith Tibbets. And then subsequently, it's been, an incredible backdrop for a lot of diving adventures, including, times with a spot and other types of animals, including hammerheads and eagle rays and turtles and all kinds of things. So this is what it looks like today. This was taken a couple months ago. You can see there's a lot of growth on it. There's a lot of encrusting sponges, a lot of tube sponges, and a lot of schooling fish as well. So it's been really cool to see the development and the growth that's occurred on the wreck during the past 25 years. So, and it was, I think, a really easy place for Spot to find divers to be with. So he was it was easy for him to ping it. It was easy for him to find a lot of divers that were diving it a couple times a week. So he always. And every once in a while, you'll have some weird stuff happen. The Caymans are not known to have a lot of these guys around, but every once in a while, you'll get a really magical encounter with the pelagic species. We'll get sperm whales through every once in a while. And this was a whale shark that was taken off a little Cayman a couple years ago. So really cool. I didn't know which way to go when this thing was swimming at me because I knew he wanted the fish, but I was in the way. And so I needed to get out of the way quickly. But minute-and-a-half encounter was really cool with this big guy. And we've seen an incredible, growth in the turtle population. I think some of it has to do with the research that they do in Grand Cayman, but there's been, in my time in Cayman, we've seen a large growth in the loggerhead population in Cayman brack. A lot of nests we're finding there, and so we do see them mating during the spring. We've got a couple dive areas where they're generally, several loggerheads on the surface. These happen to be green turtles, but this is the time of year. So we're going to move out of Cayman now and get moving around the world a little bit. Starting in Turks and Caicos, a place I've spent some time over the past several years. Our company now owns and operates a resort there in South Caicos. We're in the process of converting it to a Marriott property right now, but currently it's called East Bay Resort, and soon will be converted to Salterra Beach Resort and Spa. So just to give you an idea of where the Turks and Caicos are, they're just about an hour and a half, again, just a little under 2 hours maybe from Miami, so easy flight from here. So it's a British overseas territory made up of the Caicos Islands and the Turks Islands, and part of the Lucayan archipelago, which includes the Bahamas as well. The Caicos Bank is a central feature of TCI, which is an expansive ecosystem covering about 1,700 square miles, with depths over much of the area being just about under 20 feet. So pretty cool, shallow bank area, amazing, amazing ecosystem. The Caicos Bank is ringed by the islands of South Caicos, East Caicos, Middle Caicos, North Caicos, Provinciales, and West Caicos. And the Turks Islands of Grand Turk and Salt Cay lie to the southeast of the Caicos Bank across the Turks Passage. This gives you a bird's eye view of kind of how the island lays out. This shallow turquoise area in here is the Caicos Bank. A lot of stingrays, a lot of eagle rays, sharks, tiger sharks, lemon sharks, nurse sharks, bonefish, all kinds of amazing animals out there. Really cool. And then this right here is the Turks Passage, which is a deep passage. And you've got Grand Turk over here. So these are the Turk Islands over here. This is Grand Turk and Salt Cay here. Our resort's located right here in Cockburn Harbor. So John might recognize a couple of these locations. These are some images from South Caicos. One of the things that we've noticed diving South Caicos is the incredible eagle ray populations. When we're diving the walls there, a couple of dive sites in particular, we'll see 30, 40 eagle rays at a time. In one school. I've never seen that before in Cayman. Normally in Cayman, we're seeing maybe 2 or 3 at a time. But in South Caicos, we are seeing these huge schools of eagle rays, which is great. This is up in the shallows, a dive site called Eagle Ray Alley. And they're just kind of moving in and out of the pass up on the bank at high tide. This is a dive site called, or a snorkel site called Admiral's Aquarium. Beautiful hard corals here. Nice light, and this is a kind of a representation of what the bank looks like generally from a depth standpoint. So imagine this kind of extending out for 1,700 square miles. Obviously deeper in some spots. This is one of the local cays there called Dove Cay, and as you can see, it's actually dove there about a month and a half ago, and I want to go back because and shoot it at the same time of year because I hit it on a day where the visibility was like 150 feet and the shallows were actually technicolor. They were unbelievable. The sea fans, the hard corals, the blade fire coral, all of that stuff was just unbelievably colorful. And I can't wait to get back and shoot that again. So I've got a couple images in my mind's eye, and you've got some eagle rays that cruise through in some of those, and it kind of looks like something out of a book. So really, really amazing. So beautiful hard corals there. We do see some very healthy elkhorn and staghorn throughout the island. And like I said, the ray populations in TCI are really amazing. In addition to those big schools of eagle rays, these are some of the biggest stingrays I've ever seen. They're about 5 feet across, and I'm not joking. So when they pick up, it's like a magic carpet. It really does, give that effect. This is only in about 20 feet of water. And the walls give, obviously some different experiences, deep water sea fans, some of this stuff off the walls. We see Caribbean reef sharks, great hammerheads, and so on and so forth. And because of its proximity to the Silver Bank, we do see humpbacks on their migratory path as they're headed down to the Silver Bank, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But this was taken off of South Caicos. This is a mother and calf humpback. Had the opportunity to visit Roatan. We were looking for locations to kind of expand our operations, and had the opportunity to get to Roatan. The diving in Roatan is really amazing. It's very diverse. You can do a lot of different things on one trip. You can dive wrecks, you can dive sharks, you can dive seahorses, you can dive all kinds of stuff. So really enjoyed the diving in Roatan, and just a little bit about it. So 3 hours from Miami. So Roatan is part of the Bay Islands of Honduras, which is located off the north coast of the Honduran mainland. The Bay Islands is alongside the 700-mile-long Mesoamerican Reef, which is home to 65 stony coral, or 65 species of stony corals, and more than 500 species of fish. So some shore diving in Roatan, but most of it's diving by boat. And so this is a kind of a bird's eye of Roatan. Off to the left is Utila, and to the upper right is Guanaja. Most of the diving in Roatan is on the west side or on the leeward side, but they've got some great diving on the south coast. There are some nice inlets there that have some wrecks in them, some shore diving, and then they've got a great shark dive there. It's about 25, 30 very mature Caribbean reef sharks that come in on the dive. It's generally a 2-tank dive, and it's pretty cool. So if you're headed to Roatan, I highly encourage you to check it out. So down in the eastern, or I guess in the central Caribbean, in the south, is the ABC Islands. That's Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. They're part of the Netherlands Antilles. They're about 3 hours from Miami, and they're about 50 miles off the coast of Venezuela, just off the north coast. It's a very, very popular snorkeling and scuba diving destination, as it offers great shore diving. For those of you that, how many people have been to Bonaire before? It's great shore, look at that, almost the whole room. Great, amazing shore diving. We don't have that in Cayman or in Turks, but certainly, great place to go diving. The National Marine Park there is one of the oldest in the world, established in 1979, and covers about 6,700 acres, so pretty cool. The coral restoration efforts in Bonaire have been extremely successful. Folks down there at Buddy Dive and some of the other locations down there, operators collectively have done an amazing job getting that stuff going. They've got some beautiful outplantings that have been really successful in Climb Bonaire, and really cool stuff to see. Gives you a little bit of a bird's eye of Bonaire. Obviously lends itself very well to nice diving conditions because the leeward side is on the west, with the prevailing trade winds from the east, so you get a nice sheltered area. So generally, the water in Bonaire is always calm. This is an image I took when I was there. This is one of the bait balls. Have you guys ever seen the bait balls there before? Really cool. I mean, it's like you could just dive that all week. So these huge schools of bayfish come in, and they just make these incredibly large clouds, and they're constantly moving and creating these windows and these forms and free shape forms. And it's a photographer's dream because you're just, waiting for the action to happen in front of you. And it's kind of like living art. So, so the divers that I was with, there's a photographer right in the middle of them there in the lower left. So really, really cool. And that's not even to include all the other fish that are here in the bottom too. So if you ever get a chance and you're in Bonaire and you hear them talking about bait ball, you got to do it because it's really, really cool. So we're going to move out of the Caribbean and head to the Pacific. First stop is going to be Kona, Hawaii. I had the pleasure of diving out there with a friend of mine. Did some really cool diving, some scuba diving, but it wasn't until we got out and did a little bit of blue water stuff that it got even more fun. About 5.5 hours from Los Angeles. Kona is located on the Big Island, and it offers great big animal encounters via scuba, snorkel, or even the blue water trips. Day diving offers lava tube tunnels, hard coral seascapes, and great marine life, including turtles, eels, and sharks. Manta ray night dives as well. Now, I did the manta ray night dive. I sat on the bottom for like 90 minutes, and I saw a snowflake eel. So that's yeah, right? Was it the same snowflake eel? Right. So the resident snowflake eel. So it's not always like a sure thing, but if you're there, I would definitely recommend you try it. So the humpback whales do migrate to Hawaii, and divers can hear them while diving and snorkeling, but it's illegal to engage, swim with them unless by total happenstance. If you happen to be diving and they just decide to show up, well, lucky you, but you can't chase them, swim after them, or do anything like that. So, and other marine mammals migrate to Hawaii, and others are full-time residents, like the Stenella or spinner dolphins that are around Kona most of the time. Here's a little bit of a bird's eye view of where Kona sits in the island chain. And then this was an image I took in Kona of the Stenellas. And this was an amazing thing because after being with Spot and like having that sort of intimate experience with a dolphin. Here were 400 dolphins and not one of them stopped. It was just like, they just kept going. And so really cool to hear them, wee, kind of squeaking along and coming my way, and then dropped down and leveled off of like 30 feet and was managed to catch this image. So we've got amazing green turtles there. Really cool. Sometimes you'll be on a dive, you'll see 20, 30 turtles. Really cool. We're going to move out a little bit further, closer to where Martin's from, a place called Fiji. You guys have heard about that. And so it's about 11 hours from Los Angeles. It's a country in the South Pacific with about 300 islands. So I don't think, you think of these locations like Fiji and French Polynesia, you don't realize how many islands there actually are. So it's really amazing when you think about it. So Jacques Cousteau coined it as the soft coral capital of the world, and this name is stuck, and Fiji kind of has this identity with soft corals, which I can attest to because they were amazing. It's got some of the best diving locations in the world, including the Bly Water, the Manama Marine Reserve, the Coral Sea, and the Somo Strait. The Shark Reef Marine Reserve and Becca Lagoon in the south boast some of the best shark diving in the world. And this kind of gives you a little bit of a layout of where these places are. But the area that I was diving was up in here in the Bly Water. Really, really amazing area, beautiful coral reefs. And when you get into some of the coral structures, these things really come alive when the current's going. So when the soft corals sense and the fish, for that matter, the anthias in this image, when that current starts to hit these bommies, it's like they're breathing. Like that whole bommie is just breathing. The soft corals and the fish and everything's moving at one time. It's mesmerizing. Some deep water sea fans here. This was a dive site called Mellow Yellow. And really amazing dive site. When the dive guides came up from this particular dive, their heads were exploding too. They were like, that was amazing. It's just when it was on, it was on. So we got lucky that day. See some of those soft corals here. Really beautiful stuff right in here. These pinks and whites and oranges and really amazing Technicolor. It's hard to fit it all in, so you got to kind of pick one little spot and kind of focus on it, and sometimes you got to move along with everybody. So it's it's not always easy to kind of, because I want to stay there for a long time and shoot one spot, but sometimes it's not that easy. This was a kind of unexpected image. I was on this, the main coral bommy is off to the right. And so we're dropping down. I was one of the first in the water, and I just happened to look back and see this little keyhole with the divers around it, and super, super fun dive, this one. So we're gonna move over to Indonesia. I'll start by saying I hope everyone has the opportunity to dive in Indonesia at some point, because it is truly, for those that love the ocean and love pretty fish and coral and all that stuff, I mean, it is pretty much mind-blowing. You got to go do it at some point. So it's about a day, maybe 2 days to travel there from the US, generally speaking, with overnights here and there. It's one of the largest archipelagos in the world with about 17,000 islands. Think about it, 17,000 islands. Think about how much diversity is there. Think about how much real estate people aren't going to see just because there's 17,000 islands. It's located in the heart of the Coral Triangle, which boasts vast marine biodiversity, including 600 species of coral and over 2,000 species of fish. Most of the diving in Indo is by liveaboard, although there are some really nice resorts that have been established in some key areas. Incredible macro and wide angle photography throughout. And a couple places I'm going to highlight kind of, it's like the macro spot to go, and then the other place is going to be sort of the wide angle place to go. So, oops. So the first place for the macro lovers out there is Lembe Strait. And it's located right here, kind of in the middle of Indo, towards the north. The Lembe Strait is near Indonesia, separating the islands of Sulawesi and Lembe, considered one of the best macro photography locations worldwide. Due to the volcanic dark sand bottom, it's often referred to as muck diving, and diving in Lembe Strait via land-based resorts and dive operators. So there's a lot of land-based there. You don't have to do live aboard. There's some really nice places to stay there. And this kind of gives you a look at what it actually is to dive Lembe. So you're diving this passage in between Lembe Island here and Sulawesi here. So it's like, this is the passage that you're diving in. And the way I can describe Lembe is like, imagine if you had some kids in a room and someone said it was time to go get a cookie and they all ran out of the room and they left all their toys on the floor. That's kind of what it's like, because when you're swimming along, it's like you go from one toy to the next toy to the next toy. You don't know what you're going to see next. It's really amazing. And so you'll see things like flamboyant cuttlefish. You'll see things like coconut octopus, mimic octopus, blue ring octopus. I mean, amazing animals. Really, really cool stuff. And unfortunately, there is a lot of trash in the area too. So inevitably, you'll be swimming along, you know, and looking at a hairy frogfish or something, and then here comes a piece of trash, whether it's a pamper or I don't know what it is, floats by, and then you just kind of shake your head and get back to looking at the cool stuff. So, so this is an image of a coconut octopus. Again, they're in the middle of nowhere, so you'll go along this black, you know, volcanic sand, and then there, right there, is a log, and underneath the log are a bunch of catfish. Like, it's just so random. And then you'll swim along and you'll see a hairy frogfish or three, you know. So again, macro lover's paradise. I prefer shooting wide angle myself, but certainly love the macro stuff too, because it's just out of this world. Sometimes you're looking at things, you're going, man, this is not from here. So I was always told that Raja Ampat was the place to go shoot wide angle photography, and it did not disappoint. Raja Ampat is to the eastern side of Indonesia. It's Raja Ampat, or the Four Kings, is an archipelago located off the northwest tip of New Guinea in Indonesia's southwest Papua province. It comprises over 1,500 small islands, cays, and shoals surrounding the four main islands of Misul, Salawati, Batanta, and Wagio. Considered one of the best diving destinations in the world, extremely rich biodiversity, and a favorite of wide-angle underwater photographers. I will tell you that diving all my years in Cayman, when we see a pipefish, it's really cool. We'll see like a harlequin pipefish. We'll see a white-nosed pipefish. We'll see a short-banded pipefish. You know, you'll see one of them, right? Diving in Raja, I saw a squadron of like 5 swimming through the reef together hunting. So it's just, there's so much more the diversity there and biomass, generally speaking. It's really, really amazing. So this kind of gives you a little bit of a layout of kind of where the islands are. And Misul in the south, really, really amazing area. Had the opportunity to dive there in the south. Beautiful mangroves down there as well. There are saltwater crocodiles in Indo, so you need to be very, very careful when you are diving the mangroves. But that's some really cool areas. When you see, when you're in the mangroves there, you do see things that you see in aquariums here, like archer fish and sea snakes and all kinds of cool stuff like that. So some of the images from Raja, endless. I mean, every kind of anemone fish you can imagine. Wobbegongs, really cool, unusual looking shark. Again, beautiful soft corals and hard corals behind. And they would just sit right on top of these hard corals, just like this, just sit there. So Deep water cleaning stations for mantas. And this is actually a shot of an anemone with an anemone fish, but behind it is the leading edge of the mangroves. So this is right underneath the mangroves, and this gave way to 100% coral coverage. So you go from 100% coral coverage up to the top. You've got giant clams sitting at the base of these mangrove roots. You've got soft corals growing on the mangroves, like unbelievable stuff to witness and see. And again, just packed with biodiversity and just tons of fish. The visibility can be varied because it is very tidal. So sometimes you'll get visibility, 30 feet, 40 feet, and then sometimes you'll get it, 60, 80, 100 in some spots. But you can see the water behind these fish here is a little bit on the murky side. I think it was about 35, 40 feet that day. So one of the things that I personally have a passion for is photographing humpbacks. I really, it's been my thing. I do really enjoy doing that. I think one of the reasons why is I don't have to use a tank, and I can use, you're not allowed to use strobe, so it's just the camera and your mask, fins, and snorkel, and getting out there and having them allow you the opportunity. So really amazing. So been able to visit a couple different places, and one of those is close to home here, the Dominican Republic, and the other one is across the pond in French Polynesia. So just a little bit about the humpbacks. So humpback whales migrate from the rich feeding grounds of northern and southern latitudes to the warmer waters closer to the equator, where they calve and mate. So adult humpbacks generally can get to about 45 feet long and weigh about 40 tons. So these are big animals. So you got to be very careful around them. Very few locations globally allow in-water swims with humpback whales, which is a good thing. Closest to the U.S. is the Silver Bank, which is governed by the Dominican Republic. And in the Pacific are Tonga and French Polynesia, both popular destinations for humpback encounters. So there's a couple different types of humpbacks when you're in the water with them. There's rowdies, and the rowdies are kind of young whales that are showing off and generally being rowdy. As a general rule, it's never a good idea to get in with these guys for obvious reasons. They're breaching, they're tail slapping, they're swimming at Mach 5. They're doing all kinds of crazy things that teenagers do. So this is not a group you want to get in with. Male singers, although there's some debate about the purpose of the song, the singers generally hang motionless around 70 feet deep, oriented at a head down 45-degree angled position, and broadcast their song. It's thought that the singers are either informing other males of their position and status, or that it plays some role in attracting females. Singers will generally stay down for about 20 minutes and then come up for air and then take a couple breaths, go back down and repeat. So really amazing for those of you that have ever been in, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're in the water with whales and they're singing, you feel it throughout your entire chest and torso. I mean, it's really amazing what power that sound wave has. So mother and calf at rest. Mothers are generally down for about 20 minutes or longer, whilst the calves are only able to stay down for roughly half this time, maybe even below that. So the resting periods can occur underwater or at the surface, depending on how mother and calf are feeling and in sea state conditions. These also serve as primary nursing periods as well. So a lot of times when mother and calf are at rest underwater, the calf will be under the mother nursing and so forth. After nursing, come up, take a breath, go back down, nurse some more. You'll also see mother calf and escort either rest or at rest or underway. So sometimes you'll see the escort hanging around at rest, either on the surface or underwater, and sometimes they're swimming along with the mother and calf. And then there are heat runs as well. Single female pursued by multiple males for mating privileges. This can be over 20 males. So this is also something I'd be careful with. Generally not something that people get to take pictures of a lot, but certainly you don't. That's a stampede of whales coming at you. So photographing humpbacks, there's some really strict rules about shooting these guys. Real important that to have these in place because it keeps things under control. So all operators have strict rules regarding the in-water encounters with whales. Humpback swims are conducted generally in small groups between 6 and 8 people. Encounters are generally by the choice of the whales. If they don't want you around, you'll know as they'll continue to relocate. There's a lot of wading and a lot of swimming involved. So you're going to sit on a boat for maybe 3-4 hours, and you may not even be in the water at all. So a lot of wading on the boat. Sometimes you may not even get in at all. You may not even see a whale. So a lot of just sort of slow going on the boat. And then if you are in the water and they decide to move and it's within reasonable swimming distance, you're going to swim and close that distance and try to get another opportunity. Guides are in command at all times. Whatever the guide says, goes. So if they say, stop, we're going back to the boat, you're stopping and going back to the boat. There's no free diving allowed, contrary to popular belief. There's generally, a no free diving rule with humpbacks. The general, mindset on this is that if you are free diving and swimming down towards them, that could be interpreted as an aggressive behavior by the whales and can cause the mother or a whale to respond in kind. So fins up are a no-no. Guys never want to see fins up in the air going down. So divers are not to chase whales under any circumstances. If you do, you may be dry the rest of the trip. So it's just not worth it, right? So it's important to keep cool and be aware of your surroundings and be patient. While on the Silverbank, we had a mother and calf that we were getting ready to photograph. And right as the mother and calf were coming up to the surface to take a breath together, I noticed that there was a change in the body position of the mother, and she kind of got weirded out for a second and then started to move away. And I thought maybe it was us. And so kind of felt bad about it. And then just so happens that right underneath me was a group of rowdies. So they came in, they don't make any noise at all. They swam right under me, and all of a sudden there's 3 males right underneath of me and the group I was with. And that's why the mother and calf were getting out of there, because the males are still trying to mate and they don't care about the calf. So the mother's got to get the calf out of harm's way that way. So always be aware of your surroundings. And these are blue water dives generally, so you can encounter sharks out there and other things. So this is kind of what it looks like to photograph. Believe it or not, this is fins down. And this is proper wading and exhaling. So this is a little bit of a duck dive. I'm probably about 15 feet below the surface at this point. And then got the shots and then headed back up after this. This is in French Polynesia. And so Silverbank, they're quite different, these two experiences, Silverbank and French Polynesia, or Tonga for that matter. So Silverbank is about 2.5 hours from Miami, plus the overnight boat ride out to Silverbank. Silverbank is a submerged bank in the Atlantic Ocean north of the DR and southeast territory of the Turks and Caicos Islands. Silverbank is part of the sanctuary for the marine mammals of the Dominican Republic, and only 3 operator permits are issued annually. So experiences on the Silverbank are by liveaboard due to it being 80 miles offshore. And humpback season at the Silverbank is from January through the end of April. It's home to about just between 3,500 and 5,000 humpbacks. A large biomass, and there's lots of whales there. I mean, I've never seen that many whales in one spot before. So this is the location of the Silverbank. You can see it just off the north coast of DR and just to the southeast of TCI. And this is one of the liveaboards. Again, it's all liveaboard, so you're out there on anchor. And then there's tender boats, like this one pictured on the side here, the starboard side of the main vessel, the mothership. And you go out on those for the day. And you generally go out for about 3 or 4 hours and then come back in and have lunch, then go back out again. Silverbank it's amazing when you get out there because it's been the place where many a shipwreck has occurred. And you can see why. In the middle of nowhere, you got all these coral heads just right below the surface. And this is an interesting feature because the mother and calves, as I was mentioning earlier, when the males are harassing them, they don't have the benefit of island bays and little protected areas where they can go into. So by having these coral heads, we did witness several times mothers and calves moving in and out of these coral heads to sort of throw off the male suitors or the would-be suitors, anyways. But yeah, so you're basically kind of experiencing the whales in between these coral heads, which is quite a bit different than what you get in the Pacific, which is a lot of blue water where there's no bottom and so on. A couple photographs from Silverbank. Visibility generally is a little bit less in Silverbank because of the bank itself and the sediment that comes off of the bank. This is a photograph of mother and calf kind of resting. And you can see some little fish underneath the calf here. And you know what, with whale photography, you want the good light. And sometimes that means having overcast conditions because sometimes when the sun hits the water and lights up particles, it makes the visibility drop. So you're not going to get as clear an image as you would if the sun wasn't out. So this is a situation where the light rays are kind of nice. So Silverbank is an excellent place to see topside behavior because of the sheer number of whales there. And so you see these pictures are courtesy of Steve and Frank. So breaching behavior on the left. On the right, you've got spy hopping, which is essentially when a whale or dolphin comes up and kind of has a look around, like a periscope up moment. So spy hopping behavior here. And then tail slap and pectoral slaps. Tail slaps generally an aggression indicator, like get away, back up, get out of here. And the pec slap, I mean, I think they kind of do it whenever they feel like it. It's kind of like there was mothers and calf that were doing it and kind of going back and forth, and there were other whales doing it. So I'm not sure. I think it's kind of a happy dance. So French Polynesia is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Really amazing how remote it is. Generally south of Hawaii. It's about 8 hours from the U.S. West Coast. French Polynesia is made up of 5 groups of islands: the Society Islands, the Tuamotu Archipelago, the Gambier Islands, the Marquesas Islands, and the Austral Islands. So it's made up of 121 islands, of which 75 are inhabited. The population in Tahiti, located in the Society Islands, makes up 69% of the total population of French Polynesia. So Moorea, located off the coast of Tahiti, offers some of the best in-water encounters with humpbacks. Whale season in French Polynesia is from July through early November. And this kind of gives you a little bit of a layout. Just some of the Society Islands here. Some of them you've obviously heard of before. Places like Bora Bora up in the upper left. But Tahiti is in the lower right, as marked by the Google Map pin. And then Moorea is just here off of the coast. And it's about a 35-minute ferry ride from Tahiti. So this is, I wanted to include this image because one of the things that's cool about this, not only is Moorea a beautiful island, but it also highlights these bays in the north, which are right up in here. So the mother and calf humpbacks will come into these little bays, and they will come inside and hide out from the male suitors. So when they're being harassed, again, the silverbank's got the coral heads. These guys have these bays. So when they're inside the bays, there's no one can get in the water with them. So they're protected 100% from human encounters and so forth once they're inside of these bays. So just about every day we were going out, there was a mother and calf somewhere in here, kind of just hanging out. This is a typical humpback whale boat for the area. Go fast, rigid hull inflatable. Generally 6 to 8 people on board. Our groups were 6. Very comfortable for as much time as you're out there. But like I said, it's a lot of waiting. And sometimes you don't even get in the water. So as you can see here, gear's all packed up still. It's not even, let's not even get ready to get in the water. So sometimes, like I said, you can spend a long time out there and wait some more. Where are the whales? It's a good time to fly your drone, though. See, we got a little drone stuff going on here. So it's like, hey, let's do some drone stuff. So these are some of the images from French Polynesia, mother and calf humpback. We were very patient. Several of our trips, very patient, and I've encouraged all of the people on the trips to be very patient because it's not over till it's over, right? So like the last day, we hit pay dirt with the mother and calf, and we spent 2.5 hours with mother and calf. Amazing. And we had them in blue water. We had them resting, nursing over the shallow reefs and so forth, as you'll see in a second. But mother's just moving along, and calf's like, hey, look what I can do, Mom. And sometimes you get a look at that eyeball, and you know that they're looking you up and down, trying to figure it out. So a lot of stuff going on inside there. This is mother and calf in the shallows, swimming along. And there was a really, 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 really strong current here. A longshore current was going along, and these guys were having no problem. Of course, we're trying to do our best to keep up and not get in the way and be courteous, as always. But they were happy to be around us. They didn't mind. You can see how shallow this is. This is about 25, 30 feet. This is one of those resting phases that I was talking about, and there's nothing like mother's touch, right? So here's the calf underneath mom's pectoral fin, just feeling protected and safe and sound, and she just sat here motionless for an hour and a half, just like this. Really, really amazing encounter. And this was another day. Had a very curious calf. When mom's down sleeping and resting, and calf can't stay down that long, calf comes up and is like, hey, what are you? And come over, and they'll start doing like the little spiral moves and all kinds of stuff, and kind of investigate all the people up there. And this one came right up to me and just kind of looked at me again. Just blessed to have the opportunity to look at such a magnificent creature in the eye. These were a couple sleepers. So whales do sleep. So these guys were like probably like 60 feet. And we were kind of just sitting there looking at them, and they both came up at the same time. And, it's amazing when they come up because they're not making any noise. They're not expelling any air. They're just these huge submarines underwater coming up, and these guys just kind of swam by. I particularly like the coloration of the one in front and the foreground. This is the last day again. On the last trip, I was in French Polynesia. Beautiful pair of humpbacks. I think these were just some young males. Same whale. And so yeah, so that's it. And you know what? I mean, I'm just gonna say thank you. I'm just gonna say, I think I might ask this guy where he wants to go next, because obviously somewhere around 1975 or so, or maybe I guess it was earlier than that, I kind of was thinking I was going to go someplace and go look at some pretty fish and coral. I don't know about you, but thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.